Good evening, everyone. We're here at the Difference Maker 2021 $50,000 Idea Challenge Workshop 4. So the last workshop of our series, and it's going to be about delivering your rocket pitch as well as developing your rocket pitch. So my name's Holly Lalos, and I oversee the Difference Maker program. And this evening, we have two facilitators, Professor Kathy Levy from Fine Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences, and Professor Kevin Willett from the Manning School of Business. We also have some other faculty fellows joining us this evening and also some mentors who will be assisting with the breakout rooms and the activity. And we will introduce them a bit later on. So just to quickly recap what we've done so far, you should have attended or reviewed the materials from workshops 1 through 3. And please remember to submit your idea plan by this Friday, March 5th at 5 p.m. You just log into the Difference Maker idea platform online and you'll be able to complete your idea plan. And again, this workshop series, the toolkits, everything that you've learned was meant to help you develop that idea plan. Once you submit your idea plans, there are going to be people, judges, who we refer to as readers, who will be reading and scoring your idea plans. So semi-finalist teams, about 30 to 35 teams, will be announced on March 15th. From there, those teams will be moving on to the preliminary pitch-off, which is taking place on April 7th. And before that happens, I'll be reaching out to all of the semi-finalist teams, and you'll be doing a one-on-one mandatory rocket pitch coaching session with me and some other faculty fellows to really help prepare you and solidify your idea. And then from there, for the semi-finalist teams, you'll have your rocket pitch presentation due on March 26th. And again, we'll go over more of that as the time nears and as the semi-finalists are announced. So the agenda for this evening, the workshop review, and then the facilitators will talk about rocket pitch coaching, developing your pitch and what the judges are really looking for. Some team examples of past Difference Maker students will be used, so you'll be able to learn from those students and those presentations. And then, of course, we'll end with the activity so that you can really begin digging deeper and developing your presentation. So with that, I would like to pass it off to Professor Willett.
Hello. So actually, I thought Kathy was going first.
So yeah,
that's sorry. Fine. No, Professor Levy, sorry about that. I thought it was.
No problem. Okay, so I think, so let's see if I can start sharing now. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so good evening, everybody, and welcome to workshop 4 of the Difference Maker workshop series. I'd like to thank Holly especially for organizing this and all our supporting fellow faculty, particularly for my co-presenter Kevin and all the great mentors that he's been able to bring in for us this evening to work with all the students on their rocket pitch plan. So what we're going over right now is your actual delivery in terms of the PowerPoints as well as your delivery when you meet with the judges. So one of the main keys of this is that it has to be very succinct, right? And we want you to be as to the point as possible. You'll be presenting 4 to 6 slides in 5 minutes, and we'll be working with the rocket pitch template that we'll be showing you in a few minutes. So this whole process of the rocket pitch is based on the whole Difference Maker model, which looks at, and we've gone over this with the past 3 workshops, we look at the problem, we look at the opportunity, the solution, as well as the resources. And step 1 is what we did pretty much during Rocket Pitch 1, where we had Professors Mazen El-Gazera and Tom Wilkes present some ideas about defining the problem. And this is always a challenge because you're in a brainstorming situation where you're thinking of many possibilities, but the key in terms of the rocket pitch is that you've got to narrow it down and really state the specifics. And that's really one of the main points of this step, is to clearly state the problem that you want to solve. Think about, who's affected by the problem, how many people are affected by it, where do they live, how are they affected. So specifics are really important here. As much as we're urging you to be succinct, we also want you to be very specific and detailed. So we want you to look at how is it important to solve the problem, and why is it important to solve the problem. And the best way you can do this is by research and talking to other people. Judges really want to see you do this. Would like you to consider the customer or the user pain or their need. How is it going to help them? So try to be as specific as you can. I think some of the main points from this workshop is to be very clear and believable, credible. Show the judges that you've done your research as best you can to this point. Being very succinct and, as I said, clear. And I think of two expressions that I think is a main theme of this slide. One is to be parsimonious, which is kind of a principle scientists adopt, whereby there might be many different theories to explain the data, but scientists choose the principle that you choose the theory that explains it the most simplistically. So another one actually comes from the arts, and it's an expression in English that was derived from the United States film industry years ago when they were making silent movies. And it's attributed to Hal Roach, a famous filmmaker, when he used the expression "cut to the chase." And what that meant was trying to get rid of all the unnecessary dialogue and getting to the important, exciting part of the film, which was, the chase scene. So consider those examples possibly when you're thinking about your problem. Be as clear, as detailed, but specific. Use the least amount of words you can. Try to, as you're performing and presenting it, not only on the slide, but when you're delivering it, try to be clear and convincing, and try to maintain the person's attention, right? The human attention span doesn't usually last too long. Of course, the judges are going to be there interested in hearing about your work. That's why they've volunteered to be judges, but we want to make sure we maintain their attention. So the next step involves assessing the opportunity. And this is where you have to demonstrate your knowledge regarding the scope of the problem. And this is where data really comes in, that you've done your homework, that you've looked at, what the problem is that you're presenting and how you want to eventually deal with it. Although we'll talk about that in the next slide. So this is something that we've already started in step one, right? You identified a problem and you're looking at how is it currently being addressed. So you do that competitor analysis by looking at who's addressing it and how are they doing it, and how is your current solution possibly better or more efficient or just different than the current competitor, if there is one, and there probably is. So in terms of this slide, some main points to consider is providing the data and show that you are really serious about what you are trying to solve. Okay, the next slide is, so this is a slide which we all have a hard time with. Sometimes we want to describe this in slide one, is what's our solution? How are we going to solve this problem? Because the whole thing is problem solving, right? But this is the time when you may clearly describe your solution, and hopefully it'll be clearer as you continue to do research and dig deeper. So what value does your solution deliver? And we often hear the term value proposition, whereby, we're trying to solve the needs of the customer or the problem that the customer has. And, one of our workshop presenters mentioned the idea that there's different types of values, right? There's practical values and there's more deeper values, or sacred values, I think was the word that Professor Shortland had mentioned. So in this, slide and during this part of your presentation, you want to make sure that you continue to maintain the attention of the people that you're delivering this to, but also how can you sustain and grow your solution over time? So again, continue to present relevant details, and as the presenters from workshop 3, Tom O'Donnell and Hunter Mack make sure you use the business models and you try to continue with the data. And excuse me, I didn't mention our workshop 2 folks, which was actually Professor Shortland as well as Professor Shell. So, and then finally, we get to step 4, which is where this is one of the reasons you're there with the judges. You want to identify your resources that you need. What is it you need to accomplish this, problem that you're presenting and coming up with a solution? How will you use these resources? So it's suggested that maybe you develop a budget, ideally maybe in terms of the time frame from May to May, from 2021 to 2022. And how you might use the funding if you are indeed rewarded with some of the money from this project. So one of the things to consider is not only the money that you might be getting, but also the mentoring and the networking that you're able to get just from the volunteers that we have with us this evening or that have been with us in the past. You can gain much more than just money for your solution, and hopefully your solution will be accepted. But if it isn't, please continue your pursuits. You certainly are brave and ambitious embarking on this, trying to make the world a bit better, and take pride in your work, and also, try to be open to, many of the things that the judges will offer you, as well as our other mentors, and eventually give back. And so you're going to see Professor Kevin Willett is going to show you some of the fascinating past projects that have won Difference Maker. And finally, just to conclude with the slides, the next slide would be slide 5, which you say thank you, and slide 6. You can have a whole bunch of other appendices there. You don't necessarily have to show them, but just in case you anticipate other questions that the judges might ask you that you feel might clog up the, the succinct delivery that you're going to present, but maybe just have backup. It's always good if you can anticipate what you think the person might be asking. So with that, unless you have questions, I'd like to turn it over to Professor Willett, and I hope you continue to learn and do well from our wonderful Difference Maker program.
All right, so before we jump into these slides, just something else to think about. When you're pitching, the first thing you got to think about is everyone's asking himself, what's in this for me? That's the first thing everyone's listening. You did it tonight. We start speaking, you're like, what's in this for me? Why should I be listening? And unfortunately, that's part of life. Anytime someone's pitching something to you, trying to sell you an idea, you're asking, what's in it for me? The second thing, people don't like change. It's something that most people are just going to avoid. So if you get to meet me, I like pizza, Mountain Dew, and Cocoa Puffs. That's pretty much my whole diet. And people always say to me, Kev, have you tried this pizza? And the answer is usually no, because I know what I like. So when you're pitching your idea, someone might already be using something else. So they're like, why do I want to do this? So you got to kind of start from there and think about that. How are people going to do that? Remember, people buy solutions to their problems. And maybe that's not even enough. The other day, I saw something really random. I was out walking and I saw a man scraping his car using a CD case. That's what he's using to scrape his car. So I stopped. I'm like, don't you use a scraper for that? He's like, why would I buy one? I have a CD case, works perfectly. So even if you have an amazing idea, people still may not use it. I was stunned. I mean, I watched him. It took him like 20 minutes to scrape his car. But that happens. One of the mistakes you're going to make is you're going to say everyone needs this. Probably not true. If you're selling oxygen, you're selling water, or tacos, maybe tacos, but probably not even tacos. But we all do this. When we come up with a business idea, we're like, this is amazing. This is going to work. This is going to be so cool. But again, people don't like change and they may not go for it. Here's the hardest thing to accept as an entrepreneur is people are irrational. Silly things. I always ask my class, hey, who bought a Snuggie? And people go nuts. Oh, I have one. Did you really need a Snuggie? Did you really need arms on your blanket? And I had students go, yes, absolutely essential to my life. So I always tell my students, when I was a little bit younger than you, 40 years ago, For Christmas, I bought my dad a pet rock. It was a rock on a string. Came in this cheap cardboard box with paper shredded. That was its nest. My dad's rock was named Sylvester. I probably paid 10, 12 bucks for it. Now, did it fit my need? Yeah, I needed a Christmas gift from my dad. Was it silly? Absolutely. It was a waste of time and money, but I still did it. I still went out and bought it. So these are the things you have to think about before you start. The biggest thing, what's in it for me? That's what everyone's thinking every time you start pitching. If they can't get that, they're just going to give up on you. So, and come back here. I might just go back for a second. So I want to walk you through each one of those slides. So just to emphasize what Kathy said, when you get to problem, what's the problem you're trying to solve? But you also have to learn the difference between a headache and a migraine problem. We talk a lot about that. A headache problem, it's an inconvenience. You probably won't spend money to solve it. And that's the big thing here. It has to be a migraine problem. It has to be big enough for you to want to take action. Because if it's not, you're just going to pass it by. So that's what you have to ask yourself. Is this truly a migraine problem? Will people spend money on this solution? If not, you may not have found the right problem yet. Here's where you're going to get in trouble, the opportunity. Guess what? As entrepreneurs, we are all geniuses. We don't want to take the time to do this. We don't want to go out and ask people. We know our idea is perfect. This happened to me, unfortunately. 3 years ago, 2 months ago, I had the idea. So my business, I host business networking events, and I wanted to go online 3 years, 2 months ago. I remember it like yesterday. I thought I was a genius. We can do this online. People don't have to drive to events. It saves time. They actually meet new people. I was excited. I'm like, I am a genius. This is the best idea I've ever had. I implemented it. It failed. I didn't go and ask anyone. I just thought I was smart. I'm like, this is a great idea. Everyone will do this. Say how that word, everyone again. And I found out I was wrong. Well, I say I wasn't wrong. I was just 3 years 2 months ahead of time. COVID came. Now everyone's doing everything online. So I joke, I wasn't wrong. I was just too far ahead of everyone else. But you have to look at this and say, is this, the opportunity? You got to go out and talk to people. But you know what people say to me? They use Henry Ford as an example. Henry Ford supposedly said, if I would ask people what they wanted, they would have told me faster horses. They didn't know what a car was. So see how easy it is? My favorite is, we're all Steve Jobs. He didn't go out and ask people if they wanted an iPhone. He didn't know what it was. So we all try to go there like, hey, I'm a visionary. This is why I'm not going to do that. Please don't do that. So in my case, when I tried to start the online events, I didn't spend any money on it. So I was wrong. It is what it is. But I had a friend who did this. She went out and she started a wine, cheese, and flower shop. It cost her $50,000 to build it. Wasn't a need for it. People didn't want it. So unfortunately, she went out of business in about 6 months, $50,000 later. So you gotta think about it. Also think about the market. Froyo, frozen yogurt. I live in Drake. We had 3 of them in Drake. We didn't need 3 frozen yogurt places. You know how many we have now? None. They went out of business. It was a fad. And that happens is we see these fads of like, hey, like now teaching Difference Maker, every team wants to make fancy masks. Maybe, but hopefully we won't need them forever. So you got to think about the potential market size. Is this something we need? I had a team last semester. They wanted to start a business around cleaning dorms. They're like, hey, we don't want to clean our dorm. We're going to start it. When they looked at it, they realized not enough people were willing to pay for it. So you have to understand the opportunity. So when you get into the solution, as Kathy said, you have to be able to say, why is this better than everyone else? And it's what people struggle with. So right now I'm teaching this class. My students are sending me examples. And I'm like, it's exactly like this. And they get sad because you have to be able to tell people, why is your solution better than the competition? You know what we say? We'll provide better service. Probably not going to be enough to win because people are just going to say, well, I don't need better service than I'm already getting. So you have to be able to take the time to realize, hey, this is what we're doing. So resources, Kathy said, first rule, don't run out of money. Second rule, don't run out of money. And I find that a lot of teams do this. They don't take the time to go out and ask, what does it cost? Now, my favorite is, I teach in a business school. So all the people, all you engineers out there listening today, we all assume you're going to come work for us for free. Because they say, well, you're going to build an app. Who's doing that? Well, I'm going to find someone in the engineering school. I'm going to find a computer science person. Well, you're going to pay them? No, they're going to do it for free. So just so you all know, you're going to school, you're going to come work for the people in the business department for free. Now that may not be practical. So I tell my team, well, what if you can't? You know, we assume, hey, we're going to work from our basement. Well, what happens when it takes off and you can't work from your basement anymore? You have to think about the resources you need. As Holly said, clearly list those out. So we say, okay, you need $10,000. This is how you're spending it, so that we're prepared. Because what happens is, if you don't do this and you go out and you start trying to spend money and you run out of money, then now what? Got to go back to your investors, say, hey, I know I told you I needed X dollars, but it's actually a lot more than that. You may not be able to raise the money. So think about the resources. Judges want to see how you're going to spend the money. If we're awarding you money, what are you going to do with it? That's really important for them to be able to see that. All right, so just to finish this up, be careful about using technical jargon. We all do this. Every industry has their own words. But if you're pitching and I don't know what the slide means, I don't know what that word means, you're losing people. So they talk about, make sure you practice in front of people who are not familiar with your project. Because by doing that, you're going to catch those types of jargon. You're going to, people will ask questions, hey, this doesn't make sense. So that really helps. Keep it simple, but you have to use credible information. The judges are going to want to see that you took the time to go out and talk to people. You know, what type of results did you get? So I've had students. Yeah.
So if we can't necessarily do surveys, so my study is kind of based off of old people, and I don't think they'll necessarily be able to have access to surveys. So what do I do in order to get in contact with them?
So what is your idea?
Oh, so basically test the rate of degradation of the memory. So like through the activity of like sleep and how we lose sleep as we age, or how a certain activity that we do it goes down because of the memory, and that will help treat certain diseases like dementia and other things, hopefully.
So Holly, there'd be enough research out there that they could just use current research to handle that?
Yeah, and I would also say, depending on what age group you're looking at, and I mean, if you have access to those people, whether it's grandparents or aunts or uncles or parents, I know some of those age groups now also use social media, so you could post a survey there, and there's actually check marks you can click to make sure the survey is going to certain age groups, certain geographical areas, for example. So I would say sort of think about your age group. And then depending on that too, it seems like your idea is very health-based. So you could actually see if you could talk to professors at UMass Lowell, see if any of them are researching around that area, maybe talk to nurses or doctors, for example, and gather data that way. So I think you have a few options, and we can certainly discuss that in more depth if you need help with that.
So like I said, just to finish up the slide, thank you for the question, is again, tell a story. That's what people like. They like to see why you're doing that. We're going to show you this in one of our presentations coming up. Identify the customer pain and how your solution is going to solve that. That's what we're looking for. How is it going to solve it? Here's where you get in trouble. It's 5 minutes. That's it. We get excited. We go into too much detail. And next thing you know, the judge is putting up a one minute and you're like, oh, I didn't get through it. Again, don't forget your resource slide. How are you going to spend the money? So here's the first team we want to look at tonight. As you can see, they 2013, they came in second place for first to the market with Point Stick. So if you watch this presentation, the person speaking is really good. He's a very, very polished speaker. It's amazing. He does an amazing job. But I want to walk you through some of the slides. Take a look at this slide. I've looked at this slide a bunch of times and I'm still confused by it because I'm a finance person. All I see is money flying around. I'm like, what's up with all the money? So I get distracted really easily with this slide. What they're trying to say here is that 80% of the people are impacted by back pain. Didn't get that right away. So when you're putting up the slides, it's a good picture, but you want to make sure you have information on the slide as well so that people don't get distracted. Because again, if I look at this slide and I'm thinking, what's with the money? I'm missing what you're saying. So you want to make sure that you need both pieces. You need the slides and you need to speak well and describe things. But if you lose people on the slides, it's going to impact your presentation. So same thing here. I don't really know what verbal cues are. Remember we talked about jargon? So I'm like, what are verbal cues? It looks like these pieces of the puzzle are supposed to come together, but I don't know why. Then I see the picture at the bottom. I'm like, I don't know what that picture is. Are they playing Twister? I'm like, I get lost by this. So again, now I have 2 slides in a row that I've been lost on. See how easy it is to lose me? I can just go, I don't get it. And I stop listening. So it has to go together. You need good slides and you need a good presentation. So good here. Now I can clearly see what the idea is. This is a great picture. I see what they're doing with this now. I think this is a great slide too. It's clearly showing what they're going to do with the money. And that's what the judges want to see. If we're going to award you money, what are you going to do with it? Over to the side, they got a great graph. Shows me the target market, shows me the potential market, shooting up. Did a nice job on that slide. Very clear to me. They have a thank you slide. What they did good here is they have a quick quote, testimonial. That's powerful for the judges. So you want to do that. Where the team did well, they have appendix. You can clearly see they've done their research. Next slide, another appendix that's showing how this is going to work. Here, another great slide. So what they did, and we want you to think about this, is anticipate questions. So when you're pitching, what will the judges ask you? And this is why you have to go out and you have to pitch to people. What did they ask you? Were you ready for that question? Because it will just throw your group. If someone asks a question, you go, we didn't think of that. Now it just kind of changes the tone. So anticipate the questions. So if they get this question, what's the target market? Here's a slide, bam, they got the answer right away. Next one, they did the same thing. They thought about the other products. Who's the competition? So if someone asked about that, they could bring this right up and show you who the competition is. So they did a really good job. One of the challenges of showing this presentation in class, as I mentioned, the gentleman, he is a dynamic speaker. He did an amazing job. That's good, but I'll take passion over polish. I look at this gentleman, I feel like I could take him and put him on any team and he would do a great job. Here's my disclaimer. I'm a huge fan of BioBubble. I just love their idea. I think it's an amazing idea. I want to walk you through their slides now. So what they did, 2014, first place for significant social impact. So what's interesting is when you watch their presentation, everything that could go wrong did for these poor women. So the first woman's up speaking and someone dropped something in the room, this big bang. And what I was impressed by, the person looked at it for a second, shook it off, boom, kept going. Her second team member gets up to pitch, PowerPoint didn't work for a second. They were so confident in what they had to say, it didn't faze either one of them. They just looked and fixed it. So here's BioBubble. Let's walk you through it. Here's a cool picture of BioBubble being used. Just gives you a warm feeling. It's nice to see. They did an amazing job explaining this problem. So it's a major waterborne disease, bacterial diarrhea. 7% of the population dies each year. That's significant, but you're like, 7% of what number? That's almost 712,000 people or 2,000 people a day. Whoa, that's powerful. You clearly understand why this is important. They go on and tell you the current problem. You're choosing between these 3 things. That's a very powerful slide to me, because even if you don't know anything about this, you're looking at it saying, wow, it's 2,000 people a day. We should probably do something about that. So that's really, really a good job here. So here's the positive outcomes. What I like about this slide, they showed me they've actually done it. They're not just a nice idea stage. 7 filters have been constructed. 5 of them are already in Haitian homes. Where are the other 2? And they show me they've done the test and they've come back positive. Wow. So I'm sitting there as a judge saying, okay, this group needs money to go forward. I'm probably going to vote for them. They did such a great job. Have a nice graph showing the positives. Nice job. From there, the only thing I would have changed here is I would have put numbers to the slide. It's a good slide. They're showing me what they're going to use the funding for, but I'd want to see the breakdown. Where's the cost really going to be for this? That's the only thing I probably would have tweaked on this slide. And they have a thank you slide. So here's your cheat sheet. This is what the judges are looking for. Did you clearly state the problem? That's super important. If I don't understand what problem you're trying to solve, probably going to be an issue. Do you have the data and research to support your pitch? You got to put the effort in. You have to do the work. Is this a legitimate problem? And who says it is? Data from potential customers you talk to. If you're saying, hey, we talked to X number of people and 80% of them all saw this, it just makes it more legitimate. You know, who's your target market? Who's your competition? You have to know who your competition is. If you don't have any competition, either you have a unique problem, a product you're developing, or no one else wanted to do it. That might be a red flag. So what's so different about your solution? People struggle with this. If you can't tell me why your solution is different, that's better, why do I need it? And how are you going to sustain this? If we give you $5,000, well, what's next? How are you going to take it to the next step? And that you understand what it will take to implement your solution. A lot of teams start working on it. They're like, hey, this is more work than we thought it was. So you have to make sure you understand what you're getting into and a clear statement of how you use the different maker funds if you win. That's important. You have to make sure that the judges know who you're doing. So these will be our room facilitators. They all know where they're going. So we'll just skip back. Want to get into the activity now. So we're a little bit ahead of schedule. So you're going to choose the poll topic that best fits your need. Did I see the poll topics? Are they good, Holly? Can they see them?
Kevin, since we have some extra time, did you want to show the BioBubbler and point stick videos?
I do not have them. I don't think they were on my presentation.
They're linked in the slides, so you should be able to open them.
So just click on BioBubbler?
Yeah, if you go back, yeah, so that's a link, for example, BioBubbler, and then 3-point stick should have the link too.
Hello, my name is Noel Khan.
And my name is Rachel Paquette, and today we'll be talking to you about the BioBubbler. I went to Haiti in January in order to implement the first BioBubbler system. And while I was there, I saw the true need for a water sanitation system in Haiti. I saw children as young as 4 and 5 going to their local water well in order to obtain their water for the day. These water wells are shallow, surrounded by trash and sewerage, containing water that no child or person should be obligated to drink. On another occasion, one of our friends did not show up to the Haiti Development Center because the night before she had put bleach into her water, that it caused her and her family to be rushed to the hospital. These occurrences are normal in Haiti and opened my eyes to the true need for a reliable and inexpensive water sanitation system. I will now pass it on to Noel, who will talk about the BioBubbler and the other problems in Haiti. Thank you.
So one of the major waterborne diseases in Haiti comes from bacterial diarrhea, and about 7% of the population tend to die from that. So their current problem right now with the sanitation system is that it's very expensive. There's an osmosis system that can be taken down there, but there's technology needed for that. There's electricity needed for that, which they don't really have much of. Another way of sanitizing their water is the chemicals that Rachel talked about. Again, that's a problem because people got sick from it and so much of the population is dying each year. So here's our bio bubbler. This one was our original design, but after doing a little bit of marketing research, we realized that the people of Haiti want something to look like an actual bubbler, just like that one, because it shows that you're wealthy in Haiti. People in Haiti that are wealthy actually have clean water through a bubbler. So it's made from completely indigenous materials, such as a banana bark tree trunk. It purifies water by just the means of sand. Regular beach sand is okay to use. There's no harsh chemicals or advanced technology. Again, the advanced technology is the osmosis system, which is a lot of people in Haiti are not able to afford that. And it's inexpensive to produce. It costs $3 to produce one bio bubbler. There's almost no maintenance. If the sand gets too dirty, all you have to do is swirl it with a stick. So as of now, we haven't had to do that, and we've implemented one in October. And last but not least, education enables scalability and sustainability. That's a very big point because we have 4 Haitian students right now in Haiti helping us out, and we would love to give them some scholarship money. And there we actually have these made. These are how-to flyers for the people of Haiti, and the 4 Haitian students are helping us out with this. They're giving them, they're actually giving these to people in Haiti and showing them how it's made. So these students know how to speak English and Creole. So they're able to communicate to the people of Haiti as me and Rachel can't. So some of the positive outcomes for the bio bubbler, we have already designed 7 bio bubblers. 5 of them are implemented in Haitian homes, and 2 of them are back at the center, and we are doing more research on them, and we're doing more testing. So so we are using, right now, we're using water-safe bacterial kits, but they're very basic kits, and we would love to get more advanced kits. This kind of brings us into our resources. So under $5,000, there's a lot we can do. We can get more advanced kits that we would like. We are able to give each Haitian student $100. That's plenty for them. About an average Haitian person makes about $300 a year. So if we can give them at least 100, that's plenty for them. Another thing we would like to do is make a bio bubbler that actually looks like a bubbler. So that money can be used for that. Another resource is the additional filter units. We just need additional units just for us, just to do more advanced testing on them and to continue our project. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that, Graham.
No problem.
Sorry about those technical difficulties, everyone. We'll be excited when we can get back to campus someday and, not have to use Zoom as often. So thank you for bearing with us. But that way you can sort of see the difference between the first presentation, which was the 3-point stick. Their presentation was very polished, but then their PowerPoint could have used some work, as Professor Willett spoke through. In BioBubbler, they had a really nice presentation, lots of numbers. It showed that they already had built a prototype. They were trying to implement it. And then their pitch was also very good. However, you may have noticed the sound went in and out a little bit. There was a problem with their PowerPoint, and they were polished and they practiced, and they didn't let that affect their presentation, and they just kept moving forward. And those presentations, as well as other past Difference Maker student team presentations, are on the Difference Maker YouTube channel. So if you're interested in watching those over again or seeing new ones, you can certainly visit our YouTube channel. So with that, are there any questions before we move into the activity portion of the event?
Just one. So say some sort of technical difficulty like here, we get knocked out of the presentation or the Zoom meeting. What should we do?
So in that case, you should always have a backup person ready to go. So this is a great example. So Kathy, myself, and Kevin were sort of the facilitators for this evening. And we all know, at least where I live, it is extremely windy outside, and a lot of people have been losing power and internet. And that happened to Kevin. So Kathy and I were able to pick it off pick it up from there, even though, Kevin is trying to log on. So I would say always have a backup person ready to go with the presentation and also a good understanding of the PowerPoint, just in case that happens and the person who's supposed to be presenting or sharing their screen gets kicked out for some reason.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And we'll go over that in more detail in the individual rocket pitch coaching sessions as well. Any last questions? All right, so for the next 30 minutes or 40 minutes, we'll be focusing on the activity for this evening. So first, I wanted to thank and also introduce these mentors who have volunteered their time to help with the breakout rooms this evening. Brad, Lisa, Marta, Paul, Ryan, Jack, Elizabeth, and Max. So again, we just want to thank them all for being here this evening. Again, they're here to help give you feedback, help guide you, help answer some questions you might have, and to really push you to think a bit deeper about your idea and pulling together the problem, opportunity, solution, and resource pieces. And then, of course, we have our faculty fellows this evening who have joined us, who will also be in the rooms assisting you. So as far as the activity, we're really just going to focus on you building up your presentation. So around 4:45, 5 o'clock, you should have received an email from me with 2 PowerPoint templates. One is just a guideline that's sort of for your information. The other one is actually labeled as a PowerPoint template. And I believe Graham might share that PDF version through the chat. So that template, you can open that up on your computer and begin filling it out. And again, the first slide is the title, your team members, their names, their majors, their years in school. The next slide is the problem. So putting your problem information there, the opportunity, the solution, and then the resources. So just like with the other 3 workshops, the polls will open. There'll be mentors and facilitators in those rooms assisting you. You can choose the poll that best fits your idea, and then you can begin talking as a group and helping each other develop your individual PowerPoint. This is just a starting point, so don't think you have to get this done in the next 20 or 30 minutes. You still have about a month before the preliminary pitch off. And again, your idea plans are due Friday. From there, those will be judged. The top 30 to 35 teams will then go through individual rocket pitch coaching to prepare you for the pitch off on April 7th. So there's still a while, a ways to go, but that's the basis of the activity. I do see a chat just came in. Oh, perfect. That's Graham sharing the template. Excellent. Thank you, Graham. All right. So with that being said, are there any questions about the activity before the breakout rooms open? All right. So Graham, if you wouldn't mind opening up the breakout rooms, everyone can choose the room that they want to join, and we'll work in the rooms for about 20 minutes or so. We'll give you a heads up in the chat to let you know when you have 5 minutes left, and then everyone will come back into the main room. And those of you who want to present your work and your presentation to the group for additional feedback and practice are welcome to do so. All right, so it looks like everyone's back in the main room now. I joined the health room with Marta and Kalila, and there was a lot of great conversations going on there. So at this point, we have about 15 minutes or so to go through. If anyone is interested in presenting, gathering feedback, and so forth. So are there any volunteers that would like to share what they discussed and share their presentations?
I could try.
Excellent. Thank you, Max.
All right. So here's my elevator pitch. So have you ever had a niggling injury that no matter what you could do could never go away? You've done all kinds of rehab exercises and stuff, you know, it got into a point where, you know, it's functional, but it's not, you know, there's that little one thing that just won't go away. And, you know, it can sometimes be mentally taxing to some people. And it makes sense since clinical studies have revealed that chronic pain as a stress state often induce depression, and that up to 85% of patients with chronic pain are affected by severe depression. And, you know, with what I hope to be working with, stem cells, are these types of cells that work, that can be programmed so that they can turn these you know, cells that have no specific type can turn into a specific type of cell where it can be used to regenerate and actually create new tissue. So like you could have new muscle, for example, that you didn't have before. And how they do that is they use a specific type of cell, which is called a pluripotent cell, which they turn, you know, with the help of genetics to turn into muscle cell. And what I would hope to do is work with that, since a current issue that that is had right now is that when using genetics to turn these cells on and off with these certain genes, some genes are very similar to cancer, and that can become an issue. Now, in terms of like, you know, therapy, when it's used now, since it is used now with like athletes like Cristiano Ronaldo, Kemba Walker, Mike Tyson, and so on and so forth, these have been purified, and, you know, the successful ones where it's been purified and everything along these lines, you know, have been kinked out. However, the efficacy is something that I would like to work on, and I would like to work on, you know, trying to see which you know genes can be used so that it doesn't turn cancerous, and we don't have to rely on those type of pathways. And also, I would also like to help with making it more accessible to other people that, you know, like I said, if you've had an injury, I'm sure you could think of somebody that has had, you know, maybe like, you know, torn muscle of some sort, maybe even, you know, an ACL or stuff like that. This type of therapy potentially, you know, if it can be more acceptable by health insurance, can help, at least if not reduce maybe necessarily the cost of the therapy, at least the out-of-pocket cost that people would have to pay for this specific therapy.
Good. Thank you for sharing, Max. As far as the audience, the mentors, the fellows, any feedback for Max?
Hi, it's Lisa. I'm only going to be using, based on NLP, and Max, I applaud you for going first. I know that's difficult to do that, but one of the things that I would ask you to look at is not using the word try or using the word hope. I'm going to be a little bit crass. They're considered sort of like weak ass words. I want you to own what you're doing and say what you're doing, opposed to hoping something's going to happen, because no investor wants to hope. They want to know. And then with the trying, you're not trying, you are doing. And so own that power within you, and it will come across as well to when you're, you know, presenting.
Okay. Thank you for the feedback.
Yes, that's good feedback. I didn't even notice that. It looks like Ray's holding something up. What does that say?
Yoda, of course, do or do not, there is no try.
Perfect. Love that quote. Excellent feedback. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Ray. Any other feedback for Max from anyone in the audience?
Max, I think you're getting a lot sharper and more specific, so kudos to you. You've come a long way since the beginning. Your idea was always a great one, but your expression of it is really, you're getting there. Thank you.
And I really like your name.
Yeah, your name's pretty cool too.
All right. All right, anyone else? And I do have to agree with Kathy, Max. You've been to, I think, all the workshops, and since the beginning until now, it's becoming much clearer, more concise. So I think you're doing a really nice job with that. All right, excellent. And thank you for volunteering to go first. And it looks like Jack and Emily are next.
Hello, everybody. So you've probably seen us here before. We've been at the workshops. We were also at last Difference Maker prototyping competition. So you definitely have known our faces for a little bit. So I'll just get right into it. We're a team an apple a day. And our problem that we're trying to solve is pill case management and changing around like a pill case for children. So the big idea is that when you're older, you have a pill case that's kind of more for, that has the mental schema that it is for older adults, people who are really sick. But when you're younger and we have a larger population than we had before, we're really focusing on children. 18% of kids ages 0 to 11 take medication. And then you're looking at 27% of ages 12 to 19 take a daily medication. These ages aren't really inclined to use a pill case if it really does remind them of more elderly usage, sickly usage. So we're really trying to make a redesign of that, that normal case design to make it more accessible, make it something that is that a younger user would not be too embarrassed or ashamed or like to use, and that they could take with us. If they take medication during the middle of the day, they can take it to school and not be a little like embarrassed with bullying, things like that. So what we've done is we have redesigned the case to be an apple shape, and it has 7 removable slices. Each of these slices has 3 separate compartments with a case on top so the pills don't get lost. These 3 compartments allow you to switch up your daily pills into 3 different times of the day if you take multiple, or allow you to have additional pills if you need to. What we didn't include in our little breakout room is we are actually working on technological components to this. So we're working right now on adding an Arduino technology to basically indicate a light that will tell you what day of the week, what slice you want to use for that day. And then hopefully once you disconnect it and put it back, the light will turn off. So you know, oh, I've at least taken the slice out. Hopefully I followed through and took it, but that's where we're at so far in terms of our technology. Down the line, it has been suggested, and what we have floated in our discussions with our group members is breaking out into other types of shapes and components, things like that. So if an apple's not your jam, you can have other things. If you're trying to keep track of your pet and your pet's medication as they get older, we have a dog bone shape, things like that. But as right now, we're really trying to hammer out this first product and hoping that the good will come after we get to that point. Jack?
And so a big thing is what we want to do in the future is trying to, increase the quality of our prototypes. So we want to work with companies like Proto Labs to use services like SLA printing, compared to what we're doing now is using like a desktop printer using PLA. And we want to try and make higher quality prototypes so that we can make better safety mechanisms and just increase how easy it is for our consumer base to be able to use the product.
Good. Nice pitch. Nice job. Any feedback from any of the mentors, fellows, any participants, any feedback or questions for Team Apple a Day?
I thought it was, I understand the concept of what they're looking into doing or what they're doing. So it was very clear, your target market is very clear. One thing I would look into is whether or not those would be allowed at schools. Because I know when my daughter, who is an adult now, went to school, she was not allowed to take her own pills in. She had to go to the nurse every time she needed to take something. May not be a big deal, but I really like the way you presented. Jack, use try. Don't use try. We are, because that's what you're doing.
Yeah, I would, this is Max. I agree with Elizabeth. And I think you've got a great idea here, but the thing that I would really like to hear more of is in the very beginning. And that is, I'd like to hear some kind of quantification for what is the problem here? What is the pain? Is it that, because I think there probably is some, but I don't think I heard you say that. That is it that the kids are not taking their medication properly, that they're hiding it, that they're messing up and taking the medication at the wrong time, but I suspect there's a real problem. And I think if you state that clearly right up front, it'll grab everybody.
Yeah, sorry, I got a little nervous.
That's okay. That's okay.
apologize,
I'm just
everybody.
saying that's really important in this case, I think.
Without a doubt, I completely agree.
Awesome. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Max. Any other feedback or questions for this team? All right. Nice job, Emily, and nice job, Jack. I know you've been working hard on this for several months now, so keep up that good work. So the next team, Surbi and Kevin.
Hi, everyone. I'm Surbi, and I have my teammate, Kevin. I am a master's student in biotechnology, and we are Team ICANN. The problem that we're solving, we aim to solve is people who are visually impaired or close to being blind to be able to walk around in public areas without completely depending on cane stick or service dogs. I would like to challenge you all to one day try to close your eyes and try to get through your daily routine work. And I'm pretty sure it's going to be a very challenging task. We are living in a world where the technology is going like at a really high rate. And we still have primitive measures for people who are visually impaired to be able to do daily things like Braille or cane sticks and service animals. Our idea is to help them connect to the real world using these technologies like AI cameras. So the idea includes a pair of wearable device, it's like a simple glass, with 2 cameras calibrated to detect any obstacle in the way for people walking in public areas especially. And the signal is given down to a wearable waist belt that can be worn regardless of your age, gender, your other demographics, where you belong from. And there are motors connected to the belt, and they vibrate if you're at a certain distance and you're about to collide with an object in the way. The market currently of, according to CDC, of visually impaired people is close to 12 million. And we would like to solve this problem using this device, and we hope to see positive results. The resources currently that we're trying to reach out to is local communities around Lowell and Lawrence. And we would like to contact the residents of their programs so that we have legitimate data and we can connect to the people on a personal level and have prototypes given to them so that they can use and provide us real feedback. Thank you.
Nice job. All right. Any feedback or questions?
May I ask a question? So I have a bit of a background researching these types of technologies, and I know there are solutions on the market. Just out of curiosity, how do you think your solution is better than like an earpiece or some sort of other stimulator that might be worn?
I agree that we still have a very primitive idea on like as compared to other technologies. So if we are able to take this idea forward, we might be able to compete with other technologies in the market. For example, we may be able to just connect it to Siri or some AI device on your phone or something that's out there in the market, like any applications that could just provide an audio feedback to the people who need it. I don't know if that's the answer you're looking for, but we're trying to make it better.
Sounds good. So you're in like a research phase a little bit?
Yes, yes. We
I gotcha.
have the prototype and we have the coding. We just need to build it up to make it easier.
So does it use like some sort of like Python open computer
Yes,
vision?
yes.
Okay, nice, cool.
That was a really good question. So clearly stating how you're different or better, your value proposition, which was discussed last time. So very nice question and great answers.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments for this team? All right, so it looks like there was one more volunteer, Ariel's group. I know we're running a little bit over, so if you have to leave, please do so. I want to be respectful of everyone's time, but I do want to give Ariel and her team a chance to pitch. So I'll pass it off to you.
Thank you, Holly. I'm going to share my screen because we really quickly slapped together a bunch of slides. They're not complete. Can everyone see my screen okay?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so we're the Terminus team. We our team members, myself and Brian are currently present. So our problem, I believe Brian can lead us here, is food insecurity.
Hi, the problem we're trying to face right now is food insecurity, which has been very prevalent in our society and more so now due to COVID. And what our product is trying to, what we're trying to find a solution to through our product is potentially people that can't make it to supermarkets, people that have been affected by the pandemic, people that have their own farms and can't grow their own food, distribution issues and the food market also. And what our project is trying to do is trying to localize and minimize how much space you need to grow the food that you need and making it more local for families that need to and that don't have the proper transportation to, for example, go to supermarkets or grow the food for themselves through traditional methods.
Yes, so thank you, Brian. And then the reason why we care about this is, well, first of all, 2 billion people are affected worldwide. There are only 7 billion people in the world. So that's a significant percentage. It also has lifelong effects in children, especially. So this is more than just, feeling hungry. This is affecting someone's future. It also, even in adults, worrying about stuff like where your next meal comes from, has you score lower in IQ tests. So people in creative positions like engineers, doctors, if they're feeling hungry, or even just normal people, their overall productivity decreases. And finally, I think it's the right thing to do because these are human beings. These are their futures. We want to make sure that everyone has an equal chance at having a good future. Our opportunity, we hope to distribute our product through relief organizations. Our first potential partner, the UML Office of Sustainability, has shown interest in this. So this would be how we would get units out to people who really need it. And then our data, we believe this could fund our whole project. So the data we would collect would be valuable in helping people model ecosystems and farm productivity. Currently, there is no database like it that is free, or really, there wouldn't be a database as extensive as ours. And we would be able to sell temporary access to the database. And then finally, commercial users in first world countries would be able to buy these units and grow food or other plants within their homes. After COVID, interest in indoor gardening completely skyrocketed. People who we surveyed and who we talked to about this product last semester were extremely interested in the product's automation features and wanted to have one. And our solution, what sets it apart from our competitors is that it's very inexpensive. So our competing models have been developed by NASA, but ours costs less than 10% of NASA's models, and we have similar performance, or we would have similar performance. It also takes up less space than traditional gardening, allowing people to grow enough food to sustain themselves in much less space. It's also immune to pests and droughts, which are the leading natural disasters that ruin food production. So if you're in a third world country and your farm has been destroyed, chances are one of these two things have destroyed your crops. but since the determinist is a closed system, neither of those would affect it. It's also portable, so if you need to get up and go, you would be able to move your entire farm. It also has very little maintenance. We designed this with the goal of everything being able to be automated, and we will achieve that. And then finally, the database, I think it bears repeating, could possibly help people develop. It will help people develop new technologies in the future, and it is while small scale versions of the database do exist, they are not as extensive as ours will be. These are all the slides I was able to make in the short time we had. So thank you all.
Good, that's a very good job. You got done a lot during that activity, so very well done.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right, any questions or comments or feedback for this team?
I think maybe one thing that I would say, and maybe I missed it in the beginning, is I felt like your product you didn't really get into until the end. Like you explained why you needed the product, which makes perfect sense, your stats, but I was a little confused until later in the slides as to what are you actually offering?
Oh yes, sorry. This last solution slide is actually supposed to last several slides, and I didn't have time. We have graphics of it and statistics on it, but I didn't have time to paste any of that in. So sorry.
Oh, that's fair. I just, maybe bringing it up towards the beginning of the presentation, at least the item itself, so that at least as we're listening, we know specifically what you're looking to give us, if you will, as a consumer.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. That's an awesome idea.
But at the end of the slides, did everyone get a good image of what the product is as we described it?
Is it, for me, if it's portable, so is it using dirt or is it using different solutions for the nutrients to circulate to when the food is growing? Is it like a hydroponic type of device?
Not at all. Part of what makes it so unique is it uses soil. It's very much like an enclosed terrarium. The issue with most closed terrariums and what keeps people from using them is that humidity levels are too high, bacteria grows, everything within it will just die. So yeah, it's gonna be like a terrarium. We have a humidity system on the side. So imagine like a rectangle with another box on the side, and this secondary box is going to house a condensation and evaporation unit. We haven't shown, yes, we will have graphics so it's easier to visualize. I know it's a little hard to describe.
Yeah, so like basically like the larger cube is where all the plants and hopefully all the vegetation is going to be growing, like the food that we would be eating. And then the smaller cubes, like she said, like where the humidity system is, are the smaller components of the larger device.
And how much space does this take up?
Yeah.
So one specific unit, like one unit of this system, we have broken it into units so that it's very modular, and depending on the size of the person, they don't need to spend more than they have to. It's going to be 12 inches by 12 inches by 30 inches. So a relatively small, in order to grow enough food to support one person, you would need about 2.6 meters squared, if I'm remembering that number correctly. To put into comparison, using traditional gardening methods, it would take about 253 meters squared to grow enough food for one person.
Does this take into account how much space something needs to grow, and like if things that can't be like a companion plant things?
Oh, yes, it does. So within the unit itself, we're using biointensive gardening methods such as high density. So so you can grow within the same space plants of different levels. So we have a tall plant, a short plant, a ground cover plant, which is only a few inches tall. And then we have a root plant. So a root plant is going to be where most of your calories come from. And then the higher plants will add to your calories and also provide extra nutrition.
Good. Any other questions, comments, or feedback for this team? All right. Well, thank you both. And Ariel, would you mind just stopping your screen share? Excellent. So yes, very well thought out. Like Kalila had mentioned, excellent job to everyone who presented. I know MD Sadman, you had a question.
So my question is, there was a mandatory statement that we had to present it in 4 to 6 slides. Is it okay to have 8 slides and which contains a thank you slide and a resource references?
Yes, that is okay. And again, during the one-on-one rocket pitch coaching sessions before the preliminary pitch off, me and some other mentors and fellows will go through that with you, but good question. So 4 to 6 is ideal. If you have a thank you slide, a reference slide, a title slide, that may add a couple of more slides, and that's okay. So good question. And I know we're a little bit over, so with that, I'm just gonna close up the event. I'll stick around if anyone has any last questions. So I just wanna say one last thank you to all of the mentors who volunteered this time this evening. They attended the breakout rooms and they had a lot of really great feedback right here for all of you who presented. So again, Brad, Lisa, Marta, Paul, Ryan, Jack, Elizabeth, and Max. So I do sincerely want to thank you all for giving your time to UMass Lowell, the Difference Maker program, and our students. So I'll clap here. It's a little easier to clap in person, but thank you all for being here. Really appreciate the time. And then our faculty fellows, of course, and Professor Levy and Professor Willette, who really managed the event and the presentation. And then also a thank you to Graham Allen, who was the operations person. I know there was some Zoom technicalities, so thank you to him for helping with that. So just before I say good night to everyone, I do just want to remind all the students, please make sure you log into your IDEA platform online and submit your IDEA plan by this Friday, March 5th at 5 p.m. And again, based on those IDEA plans, they're going to be sent to judges who we call readers. Each plan will be scored by 2 different readers. The top 30 to 35 teams will then move on to the preliminary pitch off, where then you'll be working with me and some other folks in one-on-one coaching to really solidify your idea in your presentation. And then from there, the preliminary pitch off is April 7th, and it will be through a Zoom format. After April 7th, 10 finalist teams will be pitching off to win a portion of $50,000 on April 14th. And with that, here's all of our Connect With Us information. You can learn more about Difference Maker on our website, follow us on social media. And of course, you can always email me or differencemaker@uml.edu. So with that, again, I'd like to thank everyone for being here this evening, and I hope that you all have a great night.